Hello and welcome to this episode of CatSci podcast. Today we are here to talk about adventure cats. We'll discuss what it means to be an adventure cat and the benefits this type of life may provide to your cat. Some may believe that cats are not cut out to travel, go on hikes or camping trips, or join their owner out on a kayak. But new trends in cat ownership are proving quite the contrary. More and more, we're seeing these so called adventure cats getting out of the home and exploring the world. Tori, would you mind describing what we mean by an adventure cat?
So, the definition of an adventure cat is a cat that can go out and explore the outdoors on harness and leash. There are some extreme adventure cats that go hiking and scaling mountains and going sailing or stand up paddle boarding and different adventures in that aspect, boating and different things like that. And it's these cats who have this air of confidence about them, and they go on these adventures and they're with their people and they're doing things that you would typically see a dog doing.
Yeah, and I've noticed as well that we're seeing more and more adventure cats all over social media. And so, what are some of these benefits that you're noticing of people who do take their cats out and go on these adventures with them?
Yeah, so of course it's cat specific on whether or not they're going to enjoy it, but these cats tend to get, fresh air. Maybe they were a stray or an outside cat, colony cat before this, and now they're in a home setting and they just miss being outdoors and they show an interest to want to go outside. So this gives them a safe way to explore the outdoors. They go out on harness and leash, so there's no threat of endangering birds or other wildlife or getting hit by a car and other things like that. But they're still able to engage with the environment and enrich their senses, all the sights and sounds and different things like that. And they also get to spend more time with you. So for some cats, that's really what they want to do. They want to be with you, they want to be doing things. And so that gives them a chance to do that.
Yeah, I think that those are all really great benefits for cats who are able to get out and do some of this, and especially when we look at indoor only cats. Um, Keeping your cat indoors, there's a lot of benefits for that, as you've already mentioned. Things like being safe from predators, or being safe from cars, or can't go missing if you're indoor only. But then you run into this issue where there might be an impact on the cat's welfare because the cat can't go outside, they can't explore, new smells and see new sights and prey animals and things like that. So the things you're describing, being able to take your cat outside safely, can really be something that's going to increase their well-being and make them a happier cat, overall. There are several behaviors that just make cats cats. And so allowing them to go sniff objects and to watch birds from a distance safely or things like this, that's something that's going to be really important for them. So we know that not all cats are going to be an adventure cat, but how can owners know then if their cat is actually cut out to go out and explore the world like these adventure cats are?
So you'll want to look out for things like, are they tense when they go outside? Do they walk around? Are they comfortable on their leash? Are they slinking down and making themselves smaller? Are their eyes dilated? Because sometimes that can be a sign of stress. Is their tail tucked? Are their ears back? Or are they sniffing around, casually enjoying the environment, walking around as if they do generally in the home? But outside, those are different things to look out for. So you'll want to see your cat standing upright and walking around, unless they look like they're stalking something. But you'll want to see the normal behaviors that you see indoors outside. They may not be as fast outside because they're taking in more things, but we want to look for those general behaviors to know if they're comfortable. Obviously, some extreme cases, if your cat is darting or trying to pull out of their harness or something like that, we really need to take a few steps back and work with them at a place where they're comfortable before we can start doing these adventures, or maybe change the way that we're adventuring with them. And there are different adventures for different cats.
Yeah, I think that's all really great, suggestions of what to look for in cats. And those are actually the same kind of things that we look for when we run research with cats. So we run something called the felinality. It's a personality assessment for cats. And several of the steps of it are basically just looking at the cat's response to these different situations or objects. So, how does the cat respond when they're put into a novel or a brand new room? How do they respond when faced with a brand new person or with a brand new toy? And all those things you've described, do they, readily approach those things, or do they stay back and, show some of those distress behaviors, like, just being in a really small little ball and dilated eyes, ears back? All of those are signs that that cat's not comfortable. So I think that's a great idea. Before you ever even take your cat outside, maybe just try showing them some novel things from the outdoors and see how they respond, see how interested they are, and then you can kind of progress as you read your cat's body language. So you kind of mentioned that if you're having a cat that's, having some inappropriate behaviors like pulling out of the harness, we might need to work with them more. So, where would you suggest a person kind of start with training a cat to be an adventure cat?
We do want to start with getting them used to the feeling of the harness. For some cats, it may take you a while to really, in really small steps, and shape that process of putting the harness on. Space Cat Academy does have a course on this, so if you're interested, feel free to check that out. We also have some other resources on harness training, loose leash walking, so feel free to check those out. But basically, we're going to slowly approach the harness. First, you'll just show them the harness. Then you'll move into getting the harness closer, get them used to the clipping noises, and then eventually put the harness on them. Then you add the leash. From there, you can work on loose leash walking to help with sticking close to you. For some people, that's not as important, and you can just get a longer leash. When I walk one of my cats in kind of a pet store situation, I put him on a 6 foot leash, but if I'm bringing one of them out for an adventure outside, I tend to put them on a 15-foot leash so they have more space to kind of explore. So that's kind of a personal preference, but you'll want to make sure that the gear is comfortable, fitted properly, and then teaching them how to accept it. Then from there, you might start with just working with them on some attention stuff, getting their having the ability to get their attention or recall them towards you with a window open or a door open so that you can see how they're accepting kind of the first initial aspect of the outdoors without being completely overwhelmed, because we don't want to lose them outside. We want to see how it's going first. As they're doing well with that, then you can start moving them to maybe a back porch or a driveway, or smaller steps to the outdoors, and see how they're doing with that. Gradually then they can go out in your backyard or maybe down the street. You can bring them to a park and work up towards those situations. If you live in a busy area, I encourage you to bring your cat to a quiet place like a park when it's not busy, when there's not a lot of dogs or other people, and see how they do in that situation. Do note that cats are a prey animal to a lot of species, and they will be pretty scared of a new novel dog or a novel person. Even if they like them in the home, it can be really scary to see one out in the wild, if you will. So go at a time where it's quiet and work towards seeing dogs or people from a distance, and making them more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I love all of that. I think what so many people do, and I think we talked about this last talk with people kind of getting patient with things, and they'll, when introducing two new cats, they just throw them together and don't really work up to it. And same with the harness training, that they'll just put the harness on straight away, don't get the cat used to it at all, and then the cat just freezes and flops over and never does anything. So I think, that idea that you have to work up to it is really important. And also, one other thing we do in our kitten classes is target training. And we'll use, for those of you who don't know, a target is basically just teaching the animal to go to something. So we'll use a chopstick and teach the cat that every time they put their nose to the chopstick, they get a reward. And you can actually put like soft food on the end of the chopstick to get them interested and lure them to it. But that then you can use to get the cat just walking initially. Sometimes you'll see that even after you've gotten your cat used to the harness, that they'll kind of have like a stiff walk. And so having a target allows them to then, put their attention to something else, focus on that, and, think, oh, I just need to follow that object, and kind of forget they're wearing a harness to begin with. And then, just like Tori described, you can shape up the amount of distance they have to travel to get to that target. So at first, just put it right in front of them, then a little further away, then a little further away, until they basically have to walk across the room to get to it. And then eventually, you're just not going to need the target anymore. You can fade that out, and hopefully, they'll just be more comfortable by that time walking in the harness and leash. Another idea, if you don't wanna go through all that training for a target, you can just grab a toy or something that the cat likes, or a treat, and make them walk to it, make them play in the harness. So again, they see that they can be flexible and move in it and just get used to it.
Absolutely. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is it's really important for your cat to have an out. So if they do get spooked by something, having a carrier or a cat backpack that they're trained to go to when they're scared can really be valuable, because then your cat isn't just darting away from you trying to get away from that scary thing. They know that they can target that backpack or that carrier and go in there and be safe. So the way that you go about that is you work on carrier training or making that backpack something that they really want to go to. Toss a bunch of treats in there. We call this mat love or crate love, if you will. And so they get used to going in there, and then eventually we start closing the door. And then you might start walking around with them in their carrier, and always letting them out if they, are getting uncomfortable or restless in there. And then for the next session, trying to curb it before that. But you'll always want to do this carrier training beforehand. And then just like the leash walking, um, you'll want to bring that carrier by the front door or something and teach them that they can go in it even if they're excited or cautious about the outdoors. So they see that door open, the carrier's there, toss a bunch of treats in it, and just like the leash walking, you'll start moving that farther and farther outside so they have that target to go to.
That's a great idea, and that actually reminds me of something I often hear, kind of a criticism of leash training cats, is people will often say, "Well, oh, well, if I train my cat to go outside on a harness and leash, they're just gonna learn to bolt out the door." Which I think is an interesting comment, because we train our dogs to go out on harness and leash, but they don't always bolt out the door because of that. So is there something that you could suggest, maybe training, maybe if it's even just, targeting the carrier or something? But if they do have that issue with their cat trying to bolt out after, what could someone do about that?
Sure, and that's a great point. And I find with cats, it can be a little bit more worrisome because, they're so quick. They can get out the door. So that's actually one of the things that I work on a lot with cats. I never let a cat walk out of a door on their own. I will always pick up a cat and walk them outside and place them on the ground. So this threshold becomes sort of a no man's zone of you don't cross it, because I don't want to teach cats to bolt out the door. That being said, I always carry them outside, but I encourage them to run back into the house if they need to. So I always let them walk back in, but from inside the house to outside, I pick them up and just place them out there. You can also, if that is not a clear enough cue for your cat, you can put them in the carrier, place them outside the door, open the carrier, let them walk out so that there's no threshold. And you could do that same thing going back into the house too. Maybe they target their carrier when they're scared. That's your indication. Okay, you're telling me you want to go back in. Let's go back in when you go back into your carrier. So there's very distinct cues that you can use. If door bolting in general is a problem for your cat, I really like to teach sort of a wait or a mat work behavior, um, targeting a mat next to the door so the cat runs to that instead of going through the door. And that's something that can pretty easily be worked on.
After we've kind of gotten our cat trained up in their harness and leash and they're pretty comfortable with all of these things, where then are some ideas of places that people can take them? I often hear this from cat owners that they just don't know what to do with their cats after they have them comfortable because there's not really, cat training spaces as frequently as there are dog training spaces, or there's not cat parks like there are dog parks. So, what would you suggest people do to, get their cats out of the house and use some of these skills they've trained?
Sure. So if you live in sort of a rural or suburban area, it can just be beneficial to let your cat explore the backyard and just get them to walk around. I live in a suburban neighborhood, and I first trained Peach to do this, and so we'll walk around outside of our house, and then she'll walk down the street, and she got confident enough where she'll just walk down the road just like a neighborhood walk, like our dog does. Some cats are not going to do that, but that's something you can work towards. I will say over time, Peach got more comfortable and explored farther. So at first, it may literally just be 2 feet out the door. Your cat is just walking around, sniffing the environment. And then maybe after the fifth or 10th time, they're getting a little bit more confident and they go a little bit farther. They might go 10, 20 feet away from the door. And you can allow them to go as they're comfortable and expand as they wish. The other thing, if you live in a busy area or an urban area, I would put your cat in their carrier, take them to someplace quiet. Maybe it's a trail when it's not popular, maybe it's a park when it's not popular, and just let them walk around and move as they wish, target the carrier if they need to. One way that you can test it is put them in the car, let them explore walking inside of the car, and then open the windows, let them look out. Always have them on leash at that point. We don't want them jumping out the window. um, but see how that goes, and then you might open the car door. If they're confident enough to jump out, you can follow them. If they're not, it may just be looking out into the environment with the windows open or the door open, so they have that option. I always want to give my cat an option on whether or not they want to explore or whether they're comfortable sitting, where they are and observing. And that's still enriching. Even if they're just in the car looking out the window, it's something different that they're getting than just sitting in the house.
So those are all really great suggestions, and I'm curious if you have more suggestions of public spaces to take cats. I've actually had some of the owners in our kitten training classes tell me that when they've tried taking their cats to some of these big pet store chains, that the workers there have told them, "Oh, you can't take your cat outside of the house. That's abusive. They shouldn't be here. Look how scared they are," while the owner's telling me their cat's sitting there calmly in their harness and leash, like looking around. So I think that's a little bit of a misunderstanding in cat behavior, especially for cats that are comfortable with engaging with those kinds of things. But what kind of public spaces could you suggest people take their cats to?
So it sounds like just a perception uphill battle of just owning a cat in 2020 issue. And from what it sounds like, you can take your cat to PetSmart, and you can take your cat to other places that dogs are allowed, but people just don't understand. So I would encourage people to go with the idea that you might have to explain some things to, the employees. But that being said, yeah, I love taking my cats to different places. And for me, especially as a trainer, it serves as who likes to talk. It serves as an opportunity for education. And so I'll bring my cats to, we have a wonderful local store called Mad Cat. Madison, Wisconsin in general tends to be pretty cat centric. I know Portland, Oregon can be a little bit cat centric. There's the Roar store there, and there's some other places where there are cat specific stores. So if you have one of those, I highly encourage you to take your cat there. Let me back up and say I encourage you to take your cat there when they're comfortable. So work on smaller bits of training and socializing them to things and just the backyard and the car, and driving them to places like that before you bring them to, a pet store or something. I also recommend going at a time, especially the first time when it's quieter. So maybe a half an hour before they close, and expect your trip to be about 5 minutes. You want your cat to go in there for the first time into a pet store and think, okay, this isn't so bad. Not when it's bustling with dogs, especially if they offer grooming or training or something like that. We want it to be as quiet as possible to start out with. And then as they get more comfortable, I bring Elliot to the stores all the time, and he actually made friends, quote unquote friends, with their store cat. But find quiet places, find pet stores, find other pet friendly places. I would avoid places like Home Depot or a Lowe's or other hardware stores, because there's probably going to be saw noises, and that will probably scare the living daylights out of your cat. So choose quieter places.
So you mentioned that your cat actually made friends outside of the home, and I think that's another kind of idea that people hold on to, that not only don't cats like other cats, but of course they're not going to make friends outside of the home in these novel spaces. So I'd love to hear more about how that kind of happened.
Sure. So I will tell you a little bit about Danny, the store cat, to start off. So Danny was adopted by the store Mad Cat in Madison, Wisconsin, from Madison Cat Project, and he's unusually outgoing, which is why they took him as the store cat. He wants to be in everybody's business. So if you go onto the Mad Cat Facebook, you can see him doing all kinds of crazy things. He'll go into, they have adoption fairs every Saturday, and he'll climb into the carriers of the cats that are being adopted out while they're doing meet and greets, and he'll just be sitting in there like, yep, I'm part of the adoption event. Or he will just come up to you. He greets you at the door when you walk in. He follows you around the store. He's particularly obsessed with my cat backpack, and he'll walk around the store trying to get in it while it's on my back. And of course, Elliot at first was not a fan of that and was hissing. And so the lovely employees of Mad Cat brought Danny and put him in the back for a few minutes so Elliot could get comfortable. But over time, Elliot would hiss to say that he's uncomfortable, and that's completely fine. I'm not going to tell him no. I'm not going to, you know, count that as a super negative. It's just how he's feeling in that moment. He's not comfortable with interacting with Danny. So we got more space away from Danny. I would put him back in his carrier, walk around the store a little bit, and the more times that we've gone to Mad Cat, he's gotten more comfortable and more comfortable. And so at this point, he'll walk around Danny just fine. They'll train together. I've worked with Danny on touch and high fives and different things just to do it. And Elliot works on recalls in the store and different things. And Elliot may not be his biggest fan, but Danny doesn't care. Danny loves other cats, which is super interesting. I think they said the only cats he doesn't like are males that are much bigger than him. We all have our things, but overall, they are acquaintances. They interact with each other. They'll walk around the store. Danny will follow us while we loose leash walk around the store. And it's become kind of this interesting relationship to see develop. So if there's a cat at a store that is cat friendly that you're going to be going to, if your cat does hiss at them, let them get more space, let them get away. But as you go, you may be able to work on developing that relationship a little bit, which has been super fun for me to watch.
Oh, that's so cute. I'd love to see that. Do you have footage of any of that?
I do. I'll have to put it up on YouTube and then we'll link to it.
Yeah, that would be so fun to see. And I love that comment about you don't punish a cat for hissing or anything like that. I mean, I think you mentioned last episode that hissing is just the cat's way of letting everyone know that it's a little uncomfortable, but it's not necessarily meaning I'm going to go out and attack this cat, If it's progressing up to growling and this caterwauling noise, then the cat's getting more and more worked up. But hissing is just something normal. It's just a normal way that a cat expresses itself. So you should never punish for that kind of thing. And I think one thing we keep coming back to is this idea that while being an adventure cat can be really great for some cats, it's not for everybody. And this is something that I've seen again in our kitten training classes, that there are some cats who from day one, they are out there. They are out in the middle of everything, running around, playing, jumping, doing all the stuff. And then there's other cats who are just, sitting in their carrier and they need that time to just acclimate to the space. And as weeks go by, they might start coming out of the carrier a bit more. They might progress up to sitting on top of a cat tower, but they might never get to that point where they're the ones running around, in the mix with everybody. So really kind of considering again your cat as an individual and what they need. And that doesn't mean actually that taking that cat that took a few weeks to get comfortable in that scenario, that taking them outside of the house is bad. It just means that they need more time to acclimate, and that once they acclimate, their activities might be more just stationary, watching. Some cats, once they're ready to be on harness and leash, they might just want to walk outside in the yard a little bit. They might be more of a homebody versus some of these adventure cats going out on road trips and, going to these crazy places. And we've seen everything in our class from cats that are like I've described that take a long time to warm up to cats that can actually go out on their kayak with their owner. And we actually had one cat, if you want to follow him on Instagram, his name is Stanley Shenanigans. And he's done just that. He's gone to the beach with his owner, and actually, his friend cats, who the owner's parents own. And they'll all go out to the beach, they'll go out on their kayaks. And so you can have cats that have that personality as well.
And one thing I love about that with the Stanley shenanigans is that he is defying a lot of the odds of cats. He has friend cats, he goes on kayaks, he goes out on a leash.
So, Tori, how then would you tell somebody if they know that they want an adventure cat? How could they maybe increase the likelihood of getting one by picking a cat with certain characteristics from the breeder or from the shelter?
Yeah, if you want to go out and try to get an adventure cat, the first thing I want you to keep in your mind is I'm going to try my best to go find one, but it may not ever work out. And you need to love your cat for whatever they're up for. So keep that in mind. But when you're going to a shelter or a breeder and you're looking for a cat, go for the one who is bold. Maybe you're at an adoption event and that cat is just ready to go. They're ready to take treats from you. They want pets. They're super affectionate, super outgoing despite being at an adoption event situation. Go for that cat. Talk to the rescue organization about who has the boldest personality. If they offer the felinality test, you might get a cat that is on the bold spectrum of things. There's nothing wrong with the cats who are scared in the situation of being in an adoption event. But if you really want an adventure cat that you're more primed to go, maybe kayaking with or hiking with or bringing them to different things, you might go for the more bold cat.
Yeah, and I love that comment that even if you get a cat that's bold in these scenarios, that doesn't even necessarily mean that they're going to be an adventure cat or be comfortable with that, but it can be a starting point. It can give you kind of a baseline idea of what that cat's natural behavior is like. If they're naturally outgoing, then it's more likely you'll be able to build upon that. Then if they're a little more shy, you're going to have a little more work to do. But that's not to say that maybe some of those shy cats that once they get into a home and they are able to bond to a caretaker, then are going to maybe have some more confidence to go out and do those things. So this isn't a set rule, but it's just kind of general guidelines to give you an idea of what to look for.
If you do have an adventure cat, let us know where you love to adventure, what your favorite places are, where you bring them, and what your favorite or most exciting adventure has been. And if you're not adventuring yet with your cat, let us know if there's anything we can do to help you with that process. And we'll be excited to see you at the next episode. This episode was brought to you by Mauai's Cat Behavior and Space Cat Academy. Visit us online at mauais.com and spacecatacademy.com.